Members of the company, this is your Places call. Places, please. Places for the top of the podcast. Places, please.
Get ready for a behind-the-scenes look at the glitz and not-so-glam of Broadway, education, and everyday life with Uncommon Sense. Join hosts Christopher Smith and Charna Lopez as they bring you the best stories and shenanigans that seemingly prove how elusive common sense can really be. So take a little time for yourself to hang out with the dynamic duo Charnopher. And no leaving early, because you might just miss that 11 o'clock number.
Stand by music. Music, go.
Uncommon sense, the 11 o'clock number. And we are Charnopher.
Now is the time to seize the day.
Yeah, that's right, Charna. It is time to seize the day.
I was thinking on my feet so quickly. I'm like, what song? What song should I sing? I'm the king of New York. I don't know. Seize the Day is probably the most prominent.
Well,
so I just went with it.
I'm pretty sure that you're just going to do the whole movie. That's what the podcast is going to be.
I told you I would.
I
told you I would. We're going to get into that because I have lots to say about the movie. Lots.
Okay, everybody. Now,
hi, friends.
Let's tell you what we're talking about. If you're not a huge Newsies fan, you might not have known that song was from Newsies. Both the musical and the movie.
Correct.
Which we will talk a little bit about.
And if you're watching us, Christopher and I are matching today. It says, headlines don't sell papes, Newsies sell papes. And these are our show shirts from when Christopher and I worked on the creative team for Newsies, the smash hit musical. That's actually, to this day, Christopher, I think probably the best show that I've put on.
Really?
I will have to say. I mean, it's definitely in the top 3.
Yeah.
But going back, there's so many things about it that I think make it.
I was going to say, what are some of the
but
things that you think make it the best show that you've done? I'm so interested.
Okay, so I'm gonna backtrack a little bit.
I mean, other than I did it with you,
Newsies,
that
movie.
automatically puts it like near the top. But
okay, that's number one. I grew up with Newsies, the movie, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So I'm very familiar with Newsies, and I knew the show or the storyline very well. Obviously, the musical, they made some revisions and changes, and as they do. And I was really excited to do it, but I had seen the tour, and I think I was actually a little bit intimidated. Like, wow, how are we going to put? Well, because the tour, the scenic design for the tour is like
cray.
So cool.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there being like, what? Like, first of all, who designed this? Second of all, how does it work? And third of all, it can't be in community theater because it's like just astronomical. You know? So I think I knew we were taking on a big project in that way. My brain was kind of thinking of it that way. Also, I knew we were going to have 500 children from Orange County come out to do the show, which is another thing that I knew would be a big challenge. I will say, both of those challenges, we rose to the occasion. Our scenic, we ended up renting our set and also building a few pieces, but it turned out fabulous. And then we were able, between you and me and Maddie, who was our main choreographer, able to really get all the kids on stage in a good way. Like, it didn't seem crazy, or maybe a couple times it was a little bit crazy, but she did a really good job of that. I think it was like the perfect storm of awesome. I think we had some very talented. Everything is cool when you're part of the team. Name the movie.
Lego Movie.
Okay, just making sure you weren't singing that out of nowhere.
I mean, I was singing it out of nowhere, let's be honest, but
I think it was like the perfect storm of all things. The talent and not just our leads, but from our ensemble newsboys, news persons, to our lead newsboys, to our principals. I did not feel like in that show there was one weak link. And I actually felt like our principals were, I would put them up against a tour. Like, we had some, and those roles, Jack Kelly is not an easy role.
No.
And every night at Santa Fe at the end of Act 1, I was like,
Okay.
and they're kids.
I know.
You know? And they're singing, they're acting, their commitment to the characters. And I think their talent also combined with the excitement of doing that show. Like, our cast was so excited to do that show. And I think that's such a testament to the quality of a show. Like, you can have very talented performers, but if their heart is not, if they're like, oh, I'm doing this show, cool,
Yeah.
it's another gig, or, oh, I signed up because my friends are in it, or on any level. So I feel like the heart was really behind it. I think musically, you made them sound like an angelic chorus from above, like listening to children singing those harmonies and having dynamics. And
That's
it wasn't
true.
just
They did
like,
do a good job.
now is the time to seize the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you really did a good job with that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Maddie's choreography, I did a number also.
You did.
I feel like those numbers, watching them, I'll go back and watch. We have it, recorded for archival purposes. Watching those dance numbers, the pictures in them, it was so well choreographed for the kids that we had on stage, and the lighting design in that show. I think at a community theater, children's theater level, oftentimes the very first thing to go out the window is lighting.
That's true.
Because you're like, okay, well, we don't have enough money.
Right. We just need to see their faces.
These kids just
End of
made it on
story.
stage with a costume. Yeah. And we're just going to throw, like, it's a sad scene. It's a happy scene. The lighting design in that show was very well done. And it reminded me of how much lighting design adds to a show.
100%.
So that's kind of like all of the things for me
I love
with that
lighting.
show, why I felt like it was so successful.
I love lighting so much.
Yeah.
Because I agree. It totally can make, or it doesn't necessarily break a show, but it sure, like, brings it down. Like,
Yeah. And I think, too, that's the same thing with vocals. So you and I have seen so much theater, from really, really, really terrible beginning level community youth theater to obviously professional Broadway shows. And I always say that, like, yeah, you can just have these kids sing unison and maybe cut off at the same time on one, note.
right.
But when you really put the time and effort into teaching them harmonies, kids are capable, man. Teaching them harmonies, taking the time to have dynamics in a show and really work on that, it totally sets it apart. And again, it doesn't kill the show if they sing unison. They're still
Right.
cute and they're learning. But it really makes it,
It takes it up.
go to the next level.
Takes it up a notch.
Yeah.
But I will say,
Especially in a big show like Newsies.
yeah. And I thought you were going to say, I was going to be like, disagree. But then you continued and I was like, okay, I agree. Because when you said that, same thing with vocals, it doesn't make or break a show. I'm like, incorrect. It can totally break a show. Definitely had
Totally
many
can.
a show broken by bad vocals.
And I think people, and maybe it's just people who don't understand that dynamic. And I also think you and I, and this might be a whole other episode of, like, taking off my director hat when I go to see things. I have kids of my own. So of course I'm going to go see their school musicals. I'm going to go see their friends' things. I'm going to go see our students' things outside of school or things. And I have to stop and be like, you know what? I'm going to be a parent right now, but it's very hard because some parents have no idea and they think some of the worst theater is the best thing they've ever seen because their kid's up there and they're having a good time,
Well,
So,
and I actually
at the end
remind
of the
myself
day-
of that when I'm working on projects like that too. Because I mean, like, yes, we always want it to be as good as it can be. But at the end of the day, with especially some of these like a summer camp or a weekend camp or something like that, like, the whole point is to introduce and learn, but really do it all in a very enjoyable way. The point isn't to like make a perfect, polished, beautiful project. As close as you can get to that, great, but that's not the number one goal.
Yeah, and I think especially with kids who are younger, right? So as they start to get older, you know, you kind of ramp that up a little bit and you expect a little more, expectations are a little bit more, or just beginning levels. So even if you have a little bit of an older kid, but they're a beginner, what their success looks like is going to be different than a kid who's been doing theater since they were 5 and are now 15. Their success is going to be different. And I will say, again, I'm going to have my Sassy Six girlfriends on this podcast at some point, but I constantly think about our upbringing in theater. And we talk about it all the time when, you know, we're together, we'll Marco Polo and we'll have conversations. That environment that we grew up in with theater, we were so lucky. And we put on great shows, but it was the environment, right? Like you wanted to be there. It was fun. Everyone was supportive of each other. Like you're part of something. And I think you can lose track of that if it's like, well, it's got to be the best and it's got to be the biggest and you messed up this note. And it's like, at the end of the day, you know, did they enjoy themselves? Because that's what they're going to take with them. You know, that's what they're going to build on as they get older.
Yeah. I almost broke into song twice during that little spiel. I'm not going to lie. We had at the end of the day. At the end of the day? Yep.
Yes.
And what was the other one? What was the other one? Oh, shoot. It's gone. Because I didn't want to interrupt. And I was like, because that's just dumb.
Sometimes a song interjection is needed.
I know. But you wouldn't have got through even half the thing before I finished interrupting you.
Back to Newsies, though.
Yes.
So, were you a fan of the movie when you were younger? Did you watch the movie?
I distinctly remember being up in NorCal, because that's where my cousins lived. And I don't know how old I was. It was probably soon after it came out, because I was pretty little. Like probably, I guess I wasn't pretty little. Like 10 or so.
Yeah, that's still little.
And because when did the movie come out? 92,
I was just going to look it up. 1992.
Yeah. So I would have been exactly 10 when it came out.
Yeah.
That means my memory's pretty good. Anyway, so I was up there and we had it on, and I was into musicals at that point in my life. Like I enjoyed musicals, but theater was not part of my life because I didn't grow up doing theater. You know what I mean? So I was like, yeah, okay, it's cool. There's music. I was definitely a music guy already. Started playing when I was 3. So like music was a part of my life. But anyway, all that to say, I'm like, I think I was just not quite old enough to enjoy it at that point with what I had, my exposure level at that point. So I was like, it's fine. And then I never went back to it really.
Really?
Yeah. I just never had the inclination or any reason that I had to, honestly, until we were going to do the show. And I was like, I need to familiarize myself with the show. So I don't have this like lifelong love that so many people have with it, which I actually kind of liked, because then it was like I didn't have preconceived notions as to what I wanted out of it or what I wanted to accomplish or anything like that. So from that aspect, it was nice not having expectations. But yeah. I never
I think so.
Had it.
I remember one of the, first of all, 2 movies that we watched a lot as little kids were Annie, the movie musical, and Pete's Dragon, which I'm still someday going to make that into a Broadway musical, by the way. Pete's Dragon, the musical.
You heard it here first, people. You heard it here first. If somebody meets Pete's Dragon, the musical,
can you write some additional songs?
Charnopher
Candle on
needs
the
a cut.
Water. I mean, come on. Anyway, so I remember those being like all the time we'd watch them, my sister and I, and then when Newsies came out, I just remember being like so excited because of the dancing.
I was gonna say.
So you know, like Annie, they did like silly stuff, but
it's
like
a hard
Newsies was
life.
the first. Yeah, and they had choreography. They did, you know.
I love
that.
Okay, for everybody not watching, she just put choreography in quotes. Everybody, just want to clarify. Love that choreography.
No one's gonna argue.
Oh no,
with me on that with Annie, the movie musical. I mean, they had choreography,
of course,
but it wasn't
that just made me laugh.
anything near choreography. And I just remember watching like Seize the Day, and in particular King of New York, when they're in the movie, they're in the little like restaurant pub thing too. And I remember being like obsessed with all the dancing that these boys were doing. I was like, what? This is amazing. So that's what kind of like really got me into it. And then, I mean, Christian Bale, I was just like, I love you, Christian Bale. Like he was like my dreamy Jack Kelly at, 12 years old. So and Spot Conlon too. He's so cute in the movie. So I really loved it. But I will say, I remember being disappointed that there were not as many girls. Like in the movie, it's just Meta and the sister, who like there's one scene that Jack like meets the sister and is like, maybe we're going to be in love. No, we're not. Bye. And so when the musical came out, I was like, I'm really curious to see how they incorporate more females. And really at the end of the day, they just did the one, Catherine, and switched her out for the male reporter. But Meta has a good chunk. I mean, she also in the movie has a big role, but in the musical they did a good job of incorporating her more, and they gave her that really good song, which we can talk about right now. Ooh. So I found a fun fact. Fun fact,
everybody.
Fun fact about Newsies. So Newsies has won awards for both best and worst songs.
Oh.
So get this. Yeah. So Alan Menken is the composer, and he won multiple awards he's won a million awards for a million things, but he received a Tony for best original score for the Broadway musical. But 20 years previous, he won a Razzie, which is like a bad award, a Razzie for worst
it's like
original
the
song.
anti-Tony.
For the song. Yeah. He won it for High Times, Hard Times, which is what Meta sings in the movie. So clearly there was a rewrite of that song. When they did the musical, they gave her a different song.
I love that.
I will say though, that song in the movie, it's just kind of a throwaway song, but it does give this, it's kind of like that bar. It's kind of like Papa from Oliver,
Yeah.
High Times. Which kind of fits for where it is in the movie, where they're in that hall and they're all, together. But anyway, best song, best original score, Tony Award for that. And then also a Razzie for worst original song, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I will say too, something that I find really interesting, and maybe at first I was like, no, you know how you see a movie and then you see it become a Broadway show and you're like, no. I was like that with Moulin Rouge at first. And then I had to be like, dial it back. Because Moulin Rouge is beautiful. I mean, just a gorgeous show. But when you've had something in your head for so long, right? So Newsies, the movie, there's tons of choreography, but a lot of it is more with heart and spunk and personality. And it's not 33 fouettes and a back handspring back tuck into a jump split and a whatever, right? So when I saw the tour, I was like, hold on, Mr. Spot Conlon running the Brooklyn thing can't do all of this. Like, why is he doing, why is he doing leg holds? Like, I don't know. Like, they were just, the level of choreography was so, I had to acclimate to it. And after the first number, I was like, okay, bring me more choreo. And
that's
love
really
me a
interesting
that number.
Because since you're such a dancer, you love your dance, that would,
I do,
like, catch you off guard, or kind of like not ruin it for you, but start you off on a defensive foot for the show. You're like, I don't know how I feel about this.
I had to reframe.
Well, maybe they did it.
I think. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say maybe they did it because, like, maybe Christian Bale wasn't a big dancer. Like, maybe they tailored the choreography style and everything to who they had on set as well. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think too, part of Broadway musicals forever, but in particular, forever. It's not just now. You got to be one step up. You got to be what's making your show that much. And I mean, the choreography in the Broadway musical is ridiculous. Like, and I went and saw it, actually, so funny, with Maddie. who choreographed our show. And both of us were just like on the edge of our seats, and we're like, you know, when you have a show and like 3 people are like fierce dancers and everyone else is doing the choreography and they're dancing and they're really great and it's good, but you have like 3 standouts. This was like every newsie could do 95 tricks. We were like, what's happening? Like everyone tap dances, like fierce tap dancers on tables, and everyone does gymnastics, and this guy's doing 42 turns. And I was really impressed with the talent in that production.
Let that be a note to all you aspiring talents out there. Do as much of everything as you can.
Yeah. Especially those, it's so interesting because
be a jack of all trades, if you will.
A Jack Kelly of all trades. I grew up obviously with dance kind of at the forefront, but musical theater came into play very early when I was, 5 or whatever. So, but I've found as I've gotten older and as I've direct things, dance usually is not people's 1 or 2. I have some, like a very small handful of people who are like, I'm a dancer first, and then, I'm a singer actor, or I'm a singer. Like, it is very little. Usually singing and acting, there's more emphasis placed on that in training right now. And I think that's to the detriment of a lot of these kids who are going to go out there.
Yeah.
And if you need to be in an ensemble of a show, you need to know how to dance.
That's right. Well, and
So
I was
I
just
think
talking
it's-
about this yesterday in Capstone, like in senior Capstone, everybody, the seniors at OSHA, because that's exactly correct. Like, I feel like even in training and even at OSHA in musical theater, there's not as much focus on dance as there is on singing and acting. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. It's like, but either way, whether you get it at school or get it somewhere else, you gotta get it, people. Get that dance.
And it's not something like, I don't know. I think you can't fake singing. I'm going to give you that.
Oh.
You can't fake singing. Either you can sing or you can't sing. You can't fake acting, but you can just be like, oh, that guy wasn't the greatest actor.
Right.
But singing, you're like, stop it.
Yeah.
Dancing, you can fall into different categories of dancing. Like, you don't have to be the trained, since I was 5 in ballet dancer. I mean, you can be awesome
At
for
the
you.
ballet.
But I think not. I think not even putting effort toward it and just like, oh, I can do a box step and I can sway in the back. That's great for community theater. But if you're actually going to want to, and I get kids that say all the time, can I be in this number? Why am I in the back? And I'll be like, because you're a mover and that's fine. But you cannot, there's a technique that has to be, you can see it. You can see when someone just moves more naturally or picks something up better or has better musicality in their movement. And that comes with practice. It just comes with practice. And that's what I love. I think it was Jared Machado, I think, at OSHA. He was in my tab class, but also he was in ballet. And I remember being like, you're in ballet? Like, good for you. I didn't tell him to be in ballet. I just was like, that is so incredibly important, and it's going to carry on over into anything else you do. Does it mean you're going to be a ballerino? No. Does it mean you're going to do ballet? No. But that basic technique transfers over into any style of dance. So I do think it's important, and I think it is kind of an underserved area.
Well, and the interesting thing
musical
is
theater.
I don't know how I said interesting. That was an interesting way to say it. But the interesting thing is I feel that way very much in music of all areas as well, both piano and vocal. Piano, for sure, like everyone needs to start with a classical background so you can learn all the theory and get all the technique down. And then you can learn how to branch out and play those 4 chords more interestingly in your pop song.
Sure.
And
well, just the other day when I gave you like the easy piano sheet music at rehearsal, and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and you're like, "It's fine." I was like, "That's right, I forgot."
Sometimes
You're
I prefer
Christopher
the
W.
easy
Smith,
version because it allows me to do whatever I
because
want.
then you can just do your thing.
That's right. But same thing's true for singing, and that is something that we don't do in most musical theater worlds is do any classical singing.
So you want to know what I find? Maybe it's a phenomenon strictly at our school. So I grew up, I took piano for a little, my mom is a piano teacher. So I took piano for a little while. This is a funny story. We're going to tangent for a second. For those of you who know me, or don't know me, now you're going to learn something about me. I have a little bit of a temper, and I'm also a perfectionist. And I was in piano lessons.
I'm so ready for this.
And I don't know, I'll have to ask my mom my exact age, but I imagine I was probably 7 or 8. So I had probably started when I was 5 or 6. And I was probably 7 or 8. And there was something in my piano lesson. I don't know the song. I've probably blocked it out of my memory.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't do it right. And I kept messing up. And I kicked the lady's piano. Like, kicked it. Like mad.
Oh.
Messed up the song and was
Nope.
like, I hate piano, and like kicked it. And my mom was like, we are done with piano. We are not welcome back here, and we're done with piano. So in hindsight, I wished that, and I get it, I probably would have done the same thing with my kid. Like, you're a fool. Get out of the piano lesson. In hindsight, I wish I had pushed it a little bit more as I got older, because it did interest me. But all that to say, I went to a public school, and we had theater. There was not a musical theater. I mean, we did musicals, but choir was huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I did choir in middle school, 7th and 8th grade. I have a very dear friend who teaches choir in middle school right now. And I think middle school choir teachers are just the best, because it's very influential in forming how these kids, if they do want to go on to do music, what they've learned, right? So I did piano, yes. I have a musical family, yes. My mom taught me a lot when I was little, yes. But between 7th and 12th grade, I was learning to read music. I was learning to read harmonies. I was learning about music theory, and not being like learning theory because I do piano. I mean, I was learning it through choir.
Yep.
And we don't have that at OSHA. So for musical theater children, right? So, and it's different. And that's just the way the school's set up. But even if you take a theory class, I offer a theory class in my curriculum. MT offers theory classes in their curriculum,
They
which
do.
I think
I
is
teach
great.
one.
We offer it, Mr. Smith. However, that's a class.
Yeah.
So for me, 6 years of it, right? Of learning it via choir and choral singing. And then when I got into college, I got a scholarship. I got a scholarship to college.
Beat me to it.
For choir, the choir program at Chapman. And man, I felt like I had a lot of understanding of music and reading music. And man, everyone in the choir was like nailing it. Sight reading, this and that. I was like, dang, it's really important. And I know you, Christopher, are actually just the other night at rehearsal, you were teaching those little babies about, we were singing Happiness from Charlie Brown. And you were like trying to teach them about the repeat and the coda and all this stuff, and like things like that, where if that's just slowly dripped throughout their time of doing musical theater, great. But a lot of people don't do that. And they're like, listen to the CD. Well, not the CD now. Listen to the recording.
Right.
And just, sing it like them and go listen to how it goes, instead of like really trying to implement that.
Yeah. And
I don't know. I think it's a little bit different now.
I hate that. Now, there are times where I will admit that I have needed to do that based on time constraints, and it'll be like, go learn it from the recording. Don't get married to it, because I'm going to change it, but
And
get
that's fine.
familiar,
Yeah.
But then there's people, and my seniors have heard me say it, don't be a track whore. Don't be like...
Oh my gosh, I'm going to use that.
Yep.
Don't be a track whore. Yeah, and then they get stuck because they've
Yes.
heard it a certain
Yeah.
way with someone else singing it, and you're like, P.S. You're not Adina Menzel, so
Right.
back
Don't
off,
try to
Sutton Foster. You're not
You're like-
who you think you are.
And even them, I'm like, that was a choice that I would not suggest making. Because you just got to make it your own. Learn it for yourself. You got to do what you got to do for you.
And I think putting sheet music. So I'm very grateful for my own kids' school. Their music program's really great. My daughter's in 2nd grade. They start learning theory in kindergarten, clapping rhythms, reading notes. They learn it. It's there. It's in their program. I'm a huge, huge supporter of giving little kids sheet music. If they can read English, they can read sheet music. It's not, and I think making it less scary for them early on, instead of like, where's my lyric sheet? You know, it's like the lyrics are right on there. Just follow along. And then they start seeing music.
Yeah.
They start seeing it more often. And that's how you learn. And if you don't put it in front of them, you know.
Yeah, how they
Wow, we got off the Newsies tangent real quick, man.
I know. We'll come back. We'll come back. I just want to say one more thing about that, because music reading is not scary. It seems scary, but actually, like, there's a very small amount that you actually have to learn to successfully make your way through a vocal line. You know, like, I could teach you what you need to learn for that in a half an hour, as long as you were able to absorb it and understand it. Because, I mean, it's not a ton of information for basics. But anyway,
and I think being Newsies. Open to it, right? Like, so when you and I, wait, one more thing. See, now I have one more thing. When you and I taught together, I'm like, hey, Christopher, can you help me with this part? What is the rhythm right here?
Yeah.
Or what's the cutoff? Or how does that part go? Like, as long as people are open to it. But if if you're just like, I'm just reading the lyrics, or I'm just listening to it on the soundtrack, it's just, I want to encourage, and you could be 5, you could be 55. It doesn't matter. I think it's just acclimating yourself, having it around you more and more. You don't have to be perfect at it. You know, I hate when kids are like, I don't read music. I'm like, cool. Let's maybe try to learn.
Yeah. Well, and
put in some effort.
That being said, like, I can teach you what you need to know in a half an hour, but it's going to take you a lot of time to be able to do it easily, and it just takes practice and experience.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's some cray-cray rhythms, especially in contemporary musical theater. Even I'm like, I'm sorry, what is happening on this page right now? Sometimes.
There are certain composers that I'm like, Christopher, I will need you.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I'll take that dotted 16th tied to a 32nd note with a quarter note rest after it, followed by a dotted 8th tied to,
Yeah, it's too many different changes. It's crazy. But that's why we need the professionals like you.
That's right.
Back to Newsies. Maybe a few more things on Newsies before we sign off for this episode. Challenges with Newsies? We want to talk about maybe some challenges or favorite moments?
I think the biggest challenge going into it for me was that we had 9,000 children, almost literally. Because we had, but I think that we handled it very well. Like, I loved what you did with having the really littles be kind of like their own, like, troupe and their own chorus, essentially. And they're in for a few things, but not the whole show, which was great, because then I didn't have to teach them 9,000 things, because they were really little. Because we had some, do you remember what age we went down to?
6. I think we went down to 6.
Yeah. So it was a lot for that age group, especially. But I also thought that was so cool to have that many kids as being a part of it, because it created such an awesome visual and sound wall. I loved the sound wall that I was getting when everybody was singing full blast. And those kids,
powerful.
That's what I got to say about kids too, especially younger ones. They're like, we're going to sing at the top of our lungs. We don't care. We're not going to be embarrassed. They're like, we are here to win. We're going to, sow those papes, Newsies.
They were so cute.
And then, but I think for me, double casting, I understand we need to do it, but that's a challenge as well, as a general rule.
I dislike it very much.
We'll maybe get into that some other time, the specifics of that. But it's just having to not double teach everything, but sort of double teach everything, even if they're in the same room. Because, like I said before, about being a track whore, I don't want two of the same character to even sing the same way as a standard rule, because what works for one person isn't going to sound good in another person. Maybe someone wants to add a riff that I'm like, you should not add that riff, but the other person might sound great adding that riff, you know?
So you know what's interesting? I'm going to just chime in on that for a second. I mean, I grew up doing theater since I was little.
Mm-hmm.
There were never double casts. That didn't exist until maybe high school.
Okay.
And in high school, but I did youth theater from like fourth, like, I don't say professional youth theater, but very good youth theater. And like the studio I run now and other youth theaters, like with these little kids, nothing was ever double cast. And then when I hit high school, we double cast stuff. So I feel like it's like not a newer phenomenon, and I also understand why. There's certain reasons you need a double cast, and I get it.
Yeah.
But going off of what you said about being a track or being a copycat or having that comparison is always one of the hardest things for me when we double cast kids. And I think students who have been around it long enough are starting to really learn, like, okay, cool. I'm double cast with so-and-so, but I'm not so-and-so, and I'm going to try and do it my way. And it's hard as a young person to not compare yourself or be like, oh, they do that better.
Absolutely.
You know, and try and do that dance. And I think as educators and directors, really encouraging them to be like, that's cool. They're going to do it that way, and it's awesome, and we're going to find what your awesome is.
Yeah. Well, I think, but on the flip side of that, there's also a cool creative thing that happens when you're sitting there watching someone else do a scene or sing a song, and you're like, oh, I love that. I want to take that and see if it works for me. Like, it can really get creative juices flowing too. Because I know we've had it.
That's always one of the most interesting things in callbacks. So like, if I haven't performed in a long time, but if I were to go back into a callback, I would want to go first. Always want to go first, because then you can make whatever choice that you want, and then people can copy you if they want, but you made the choice, right?
Right.
If you go last, or if you go, it's like, oh, someone made the choice I was going to make, or someone didn't think, and now they're going to think I'm, like, which is hard. But I agree with that, where it's like that happy dance of I'm going to be independent, but also we can play off of each other and work off of each other. Be like, oh, I never thought about doing that part that way. Like, that could be funny, or that would work really well.
Right. Or not.
Yeah.
But it's also, but nothing else. Maybe it leads you to another choice, honestly.
Yeah.
But what I want to say with that callback situation is whatever you go into, stick with. Don't change your plan based on anything that's happened in the room. If someone else did the choice you were planning on making, okay.
Still do it.
If someone else did something that you thought was really cool and want to incorporate, don't do it. Don't do it. But
right, do what you've practiced.
So
and I think the double casting in Newsies, like, just because there were already a lot of kids, it made it was a little bit tricky. I feel like our principals, that they kind of handled it relatively well, but it was a lot. The double casting was a lot.
Yeah,
for sure.
Especially for a big show like that, you know. And
props in that show were a bit tricky for me.
Ooh, tell me more. I don't know if I know this.
Well, just because there were lots of kids, right? So if you're going to have a touring company of Newsies and there's maybe, 23 in the cast, cool. When you have 90 children and everybody needs a paper and a satchel and you're like, what? Yeah. I just remember backstage was like newspapers everywhere.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, they were just everywhere. And then because of the time period of the show, like the printing press and some of those larger pieces, those were, I mean, I had to search for that stuff and find... Like, I love a show, a period piece for sure, like visually, and I love seeing it, but actually putting it together is tricky. You know, trying to find the appropriate props and things like that. That was a little tough. Scenically, it came together. I don't know if you remember, but we rented that set, and it didn't come in any sort of like fashion of how to put it together. Do you remember that?
There was no directions. It's like, here's your things.
I mean, I thought my husband, for those of you who do not know him, we'll have to have him on at some point, maybe. I don't know. He doesn't seem like a podcast kind of guy, but he's the most patient, calm. And I was like, I'm looking at him, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be what sends him over the edge. This is what's going to be what sends J-Lo to the dark side.
This is his Mercury rising moment. This is his Mercury rising moment.
Yes. He had all of the wood like in the back, like laid out on the stage. And he said to me afterward, Charna, it was like opening a Lego box without the instruction manual and just having the final picture of what it's supposed to look like.
And
then
not
piecing
like
it together.
the 25-piece Legos, like the 1,000-piece Legos.
And in his, not defense, but what was even more worrisome was kids were going to be standing and climbing all over these pieces. So he was like, look, if it was just for decoration or they were going to go around it, but like, man, they really, and they had to kind of finagle and they made it work between him and a couple other parents and Aunt Kim. And at the end of the day, man, it turned out great. But that was a stressor for that show for sure. And coupled with that, with how tall those units were, lighting was a little tricky to begin with. And I remember then we had to kind of like finagle a bit with lighting. But other than that, I feel like that show really came together. I feel like when we do shows, especially in our summer slot at the studio, I feel really prepared. I feel like because a lot of us we're still juggling 90 things, but not 105 things.
Right.
And so we have a little more time and the kids are not in school. I felt really confident in that show. Oh, you know what's a funny story about Newsies? We got to tell about when I recorded the pre-show announcement.
Oh, yes. So Charna has to do the pre-show announcement for all the shows for Spotlight. It doesn't have to. She does. And we wanted a pre-recorded thing. And we're like, oh, we need to do that. Oh, we need to do that. We'll get it done. It's fine. Like, blah, blah, blah. We are opening day. And we're like, oh,
and still not recorded.
We never recorded the opening. Well, guess we're doing it now.
And I was like, what? You had your microphone on you.
I had my microphone. And I was like, well, we got to go find a quiet spot and we'll record it. I'll edit it and there we go. So we went into the restroom to record the opening.
Well, we were trying to like figure out, we're like, where's it? Because we were performing on a college campus.
Yeah.
The theater, it's opening night. It's loud. The lobby's loud. Everywhere is loud. The dressing rooms are crazy. And Christopher was like, well, what about the women's restroom? I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We went in and recorded it in the bathroom.
Yeah.
It turned out good.
It did. It sounded great.
I thought it turned out great.
It was great. Oh, that's funny. I forgot about that. That's so funny.
Man.
Oh.
So funny. Yeah. That was fun. That's a fun show. I feel like I would love to, probably a couple more years, give it a little. I mean, what year did we do it in? I can't remember.
I don't know. It's been like 4 years, 5 years.
At least, yeah.
At least.
I'd love to revisit that show. And another one I'd love to revisit is Addams Family. Those are two shows that
I know you love Addams Family. I'd like to do it. So sure, let's do it.
So you know what? Maybe that's like a good ending. On the next episode, we'll discuss Addams Family, because Addams Family was a show that I never wanted to do. I never had any interest in it. Didn't like it. And when I did it, I totally changed my mind about it.
All right.
Same with All Shook Up. Those are two shows that I would do over and over again. I love those shows.
All right. Well, we'll do that. We'll talk about that.
Love it.
I love it. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Instagram.
Go seize the day.
That's right. Seize the day. Now is the time. And then follow us on Instagram. Reach out to us. Say hi. And
please do.
Yeah. And then like and subscribe on the YouTube. Come watch us. I mean, we're pretty...
On the YouTube.
Yeah. On the YouTube. Oh, man. Go to our website, uncommonpod.com.
That was a fun discussion.
And it was a fun discussion. So fun. So, on
All
that
right,
note...
Sorry for interrupting you on your closeout, Christopher.
I know,
You're the best.
Charna. Just to reiterate...
All right, everyone have a great day.
Uncommonpod.com and Charnopher out.
Out.
This concludes another episode of Uncommon Sense. If you're ready for more of this fresh, hilarious, and unique perspective on the world of entertainment, education, and life, be sure to subscribe right now to catch every episode. If you gasped, laughed out loud, or even snorted, share the show with your friends and aspiring entertainers because, let's be real, sharing is caring. For more Charnopher, tune in to their witty insights by checking out the website uncommonpod.com or connecting on social media. Tune in next week and get the real insider scoop on another episode of Uncommon Sense.